Hey, I'm Brandon.
I'm Chris.
And this is Fill the Box. Today we have Ashley Watson. I used to work for her at a point in time, which was really cool. Been friends for a while. This makes year 6.
So good of you to remember that.
I think I'm wrong, but it's all right. It sounds good. But yeah, her and Chief have been a big part of my life, which is cool. Been pretty good friends throughout, which makes it all the more fun on the show.
Yeah.
It's weird that we're not doing a catch up.
Yeah.
But that's all right. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
Dive in head first. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Ash.
All right. So I'm Ashley Watson. I work for Euless Fire Department. I've been there 16 years. I'm a firefighter paramedic, and I'm also a nurse on the side. So I run a company called Healthology, which I specialize in firefighter health, and really, law enforcement, ENS, whoever, but just having the firefighter background, that's really my big interest. So I did a paramedic to nursing bridge and went bedside nursing, decided not a fan. I really do like the hospital side of things. I like medical, being a nerd, but bedside nursing is extremely different than bedside paramedic land. And so that I struggled with that a lot. And so I just decided there's got to be more to my nursing land than what I was getting out of it. So I love nutrition, science, data, fitness, nursing, fire. So I thought, how can I bring all of that together and bind it all into one? So I found functional medicine, which has been a total awesome thing. It really does combine all of those, but the fire service has not seen that. Like, we haven't seen functional medicine come and be integrated. So that's my goal, is to maybe flood the fire service with this, all this data and science and knowledge and techie stuff.
Cool.
So that's kind of who I am.
Yeah.
And my background.
So functional medicine in my mind is like, all right, I'm going to take a pill and then I'm going to just be the best. Is that how that works?
That's steroids.
Oh, right.
It's almost the same.
Yeah.
But
Right.
Yeah. So functional medicine, it integrates lifestyle, nutrition, fitness, the world, and like hippie earth stuff, which, firemen are not super big into, but
I'm a crunchy dad.
yeah, crunchy. Exactly. Yeah. There's scrunchy now. So if they call it silky and crunchy. So if you're silky, you're, the ways of the world. If you're crunchy, you're super hippie. So silky and crunchy is now scrunchy. So that's kind of where I land.
Yeah.
I think.
Most of us. Yeah. Most of us are like, red dye 40. We're out on that.
Exactly.
But we will feed this kid goldfish. So it's cool.
Right. 100%. Yeah. Yellow's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
What do you want to start with?
Oh, let's dig in. Drop my notes. Doing terrible starting
You
off.
want me to dive in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So my goal is to preach this kind of message out to like as many firemen, fire departments, fire wives, or whoever your person is, as I can. And so with that said, I like to speak at conferences, at specific fire departments, like try to get more bang for the buck. How many people can I tell this to in one sitting? So I spoke at Leadership Development Symposium at San Marcos this last year. So I was really able to spread this message across, I don't know, there's like 400 people, I think, total between the two classes. So it was really cool. But just starting with the fire service in general, there are 3 main things that are firemen killers. And I say it kind of that way with a harsh, like firemen killers, because I want that to stick. I want that to be something that you go, oh, okay, I don't want something to kill me, right?
A sense of urgency.
Right.
Yeah.
So the big 3 are cardiovascular disease, cancer, and mental health, which I know that the kind of a basis for this platform is mental health, right? For you guys. But on those 3 things, cardiovascular disease is the number 1 killer aside from occupational cancer for firemen. And so the USFA, which is who they take and document and collaborate with fire departments and consolidate all this data, and they list it all online, and they take all the LODDs and they list it on there. They say who it is, how old they are, what happened, and then what their cause of death. So over the last 10-ish years, from 2012 to 2022, they have said, okay, here are the top 3 causes of firemen line of duty deaths. And heart attacks specifically makes up the vast majority of those LODDs. So over 40%.
Yeah.
And then trauma is 23%. And then it goes into COVID and things. Now, this doesn't include cancer, because cancer is a new thing saying that it's occupationally LODD, right? But speaking of cardiovascular disease in and of itself, what causes that? So like, we don't want that. If that's the highest killer of firemen, how do we get away from getting that? So the top 3 causes of CVD is inadequate physical activity. So just being like a slug, poor dietary habits, and then sleep disruption. So of course, we all try to work out and do our best there. We try to be nutritionally sound and do our best there. But sleep disruption, we can't help that on duty, right? So last tour, I think I slept an hour and a half total on one of the shift nights. So, I mean, I can't help that.
Yeah.
But I do have the opportunity to manage that on my days off. We work 48.96. So I do have those 4 days. And then if you go into the whole 48.96 discussion, it really does give you more time to build that sleep platform than does 24/48.
Yeah, it does.
Woot woot. For 48.96. So questions about that?
So when we say like physical activity, right? Our job in nature is very physical.
Right.
So are you talking about like, oh shit, here we go. Sorry to the CrossFit people. It's about to get real ugly for you guys.
It's okay.
But those guys, oh yeah, that's right. So
I have both backgrounds, so you're not going to hurt my feelings.
But so they say CrossFit is the most firemen adapt workout that we could do. But realistically, I believe in a traditional weight workout, and I think that does just fine along with cardio. So
Sure.
I guess my question is, what's better?
So I don't think that there is better. When you get down into the science of it, it's whatever works best for you. So we talked about like the annual physical for the ESD. So Frontline, which super love Frontline, they're doing a lot in the fire service to really change the direction of the ship and where it's going with firemen's health and LEO health as well. But so they preach zone 2 cardio.
Yeah.
And zone 2
VO2
cardio.
max.
Yes. Yes. VO2 max. So VO2 max is a really good way to predict future or current cardiovascular disease and health. Zone 2 cardio is really good in the scheme of cardiovascular health. The other side of that is the muscle strength and conditioning portion. CrossFit really combines all of that to where you're doing lots of changing, and they integrate nutrition pretty heavily into the micronutrients, which I do love that. and yoga, stretching, flexibility stuff, which standard, like I come from a bodybuilding background, so I speak that too. That is more like just get really big muscles, get really lean, and look good, right?
Yeah.
But if you're able to have big muscles, be lean, and function, and like have good cardiovascular and lungs, then more power to you. Like that's great.
Right.
So, my husband and I are very different. He is not a CrossFit dude at all. I super love it. But I love the bodybuilding concepts, traditional strength training also. So I wouldn't say that there's one that's better than the other. It's just making it adequate in that land.
Yeah. So essentially building a good foundation in cardio, right? And then, so a part of bodybuilding is like, so they'll be like, all right, you have to cut your diet this week and you're going to have to cut your cardio. And then next week you'll have to go vice versa, because week by week you're kind of tailoring your diet to what you want to look like or where you want to end up on the podium.
Right. So, yes. When I was doing shows, I would take off the 4 weeks prior to a show because I knew I was going to be trash at work. Like you're so depleted, you're prepping up for peak week and everything is dry. You're more likely to tear muscles and things. So I was like, I'm not going to risk that for you guys. I don't want to risk something happen to me.
Right.
So there's that side of it. Traditional strength training in and of itself, it's great. Yeah. For people who are wanting to do like witch wetters for losing weight. Well, the more muscle you have, the more calories you will burn while you're sitting still. So there's that side of it. Having more muscle is better for that, to keep your weight off. But if you only strength train and you don't devote some time to cardio, and I'm not saying zone 2 only, don't forget about like the upper zones, zone 4, zone 5, because that's heart health.
Right.
So you do want that. You want your lung health. You just got to do better at all of it. So just
do it all, man.
Ultimately, you guys, just everything, okay? Just be better.
Just do better.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So for firemen, for one thing that they look into for cardiovascular health. For cardiovascular disease in firemen, there is a study done, and they said, we are going to take these firemen who died of sudden cardiac death, like their heart quit. And these are all American firemen, 45 years and younger. So not old guys, right?
Right.
Like, I'm pushing 40. So definitely very young people here. So 45 and younger, they took all these firemen or American firemen died of sudden cardiac death. And they said, what are the similarities, the commonalities between these deaths? Why are they dying? So in their autopsies, they took their hearts and they weighed them on a little, like a little diaper scale or whatever, where it measures into tiny, tiny grams, or drug scale. I don't know. So
got to get specific.
Yeah, very
feds,
specific
she's
to the gram.
Feds.
No drugs. So they measured their hearts, and they found out that the guys that died, these young cardiovascular deaths, had extremely heavier hearts. So what that means, there's a reason for their hearts to be growing in the amount of muscle. So we're like, okay, we love muscle, we love big muscles, but we don't want our heart muscle to overgrow. So thinking of strength training, like you're talking about traditional, if you do biceps, so curls for the girls, right? You're curling to get bigger bicep muscles. You have to do harder work with more resistance. So either a heavier resistance band or a heavier dumbbell. So you are putting more force on that muscle. It continues to grow. So what would put more force on the chambers of our hearts?
Thicker blood.
Or yes.
High blood pressure.
And high blood pressure.
Oh yeah.
Which together.
Skip that
same
one.
thing.
But you're right. You're not wrong there. It is a two things can equal that. So thicker blood, it's harder to pump through, essentially either resulting in high blood pressure or clotting, and then just high blood pressure in general.
Yeah.
So then you have to think into that more. What causes high blood pressure? Just like you said, well, is it the thicker blood? Is it thinking of a water hose? Do you have more volume, which is where that comes in? Or is the diameter of the hose smaller? So with cardiovascular health, usually what happens is people eat like trash for their whole life. And so the inside diameter tightens for that. So you have a pressure issue. As the pressure gets harder to pump out, the chambers have to push harder, therefore increasing the size of those. Then after a time, they're not able to function. Then you die. And you can't push out much blood and fluid through tiny diameter vessels when you're trying to be strenuous working on the fireground, right?
Sure.
Right.
So all these guys have sudden cardiac death. They all have heavier hearts. So when it comes down to it, a lot of firemen have high blood pressure. The issue is when it becomes untreated. So whether that means treated with meds or treated with lifestyle or meds first and you're working on your lifestyle, whatever that is, that's kind of the overall thing with cardiovascular disease and how that hits, why that's really important. So then talking about just like how come we are so sick. So they did a study of Americans and they found that only 7% of Americans have really good quality cardiometabolic health. So talking about the cardiovascular disease, blood sugar dysfunction, insulin resistance, and then inflammatory oils. All of that plays into cardiovascular disease. So I'm going to kind of skip past that just for the sake of not spending a lot of time on that.
Sure.
I never really thought that I would like anything about like diabetes or blood sugar or whatever, but I really do think that it is the absolute basis of cardiovascular disease.
Sure.
So I have my own little podcast where I just talk myself, like I don't have guests, but I do have some podcast episodes about that specifically.
Yeah. Cool. So I heard you say seed oils, and so seed oils are huge, especially in my house, right? So we've gotten away from so I used to use grapeseed oil on all my steaks and stuff like that, and so we've actually switched to like avocado oil.
Yeah.
But seed oils in the last few years, they found out like most of those carry PFAS, right?
PFAS.
They carry, and so the way they make them is they literally squeeze the seed until it turns into oil. But where they squeeze it is full of toxic chemicals. And so we've actually, being a crunchy dad, we've actually been getting away from seed oils altogether. And I mean like reading ingredients and like seeing what stuff is made with, because here we go. You found it on the ingredients list, right? But what they don't tell you is that like those seed oils and whatever else they put in there has been sitting in a warehouse next to rat poison. Right. And so it's unfortunate. Like you have to really take this with like, oh man, these ingredients with a grain of salt, because there's so much more behind the curtain that you don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, seed oils are nasty. And I actually saw something really good the other day. Somebody posted, they said, your cholesterol will come down with seed oil, because seed oils, so cholesterol as a molecule or whatever you want to call it, it only comes from animals or mammals, living things, right? So like, on York peppermint patties, those are my favorite sugar treat thing. On them, they say, we're a low-fat food, low in cholesterol. Well, obviously, that's a marketing scheme.
Sure.
Right.
It literally is straight sugar and some peppermint oil like mixed in. So cholesterol only comes from animals or mammals because, and I'll talk about it in a little bit, cholesterol is the very basis of what makes up hormones. And so you can't have hormones without having cholesterol. Well, a plant doesn't have cholesterol because it doesn't have sex hormones, right?
Yeah.
So when you have seed oils, people are like, well, I need to lower my cholesterol, so I'm going to opt for this plant-based margarine. Well, really, it's just made from like plastics and oils and different seeds.
Nothing real.
Nothing real, exactly. But you end up, they cause big inflammation in the vascular system. That, coupled with like blood sugar issues, dysregulation, and insulin resistance, wreaks total havoc on your vascular system, which then sets you up for the cardiovascular disease and then essentially MI on the line.
Gotcha.
So speaking of seed oils, so like saying that you guys are trying to get away from seed oils in your house. When it comes to choosing oils, it's cool that you say avocado. So like avocado, butter, ghee, all those things are really good as far as not causing oxidation in your vascular system. But one thing I would be mindful of is, so like we like avocado and olive oil. Olive oil has a really low smoke point versus avocado has a really high smoke point. So if I was going to cook with olive oil, heat will make it oxidize a lot sooner. So if you're going to cook, opt for avocado, and then having a marinade or like a drizzle on a salad or something, that would be where you would choose your lower smoke point oils. So there's a lot that goes into it. So, but the first step is getting away from seed oils. But it's cool that you said avocado because your wife has made good choices.
Yeah, it's her for sure.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so here's something interesting. So alcohol, like firemen all like alcohol, right? So my goal is not to change necessarily the culture of firemen, but to like, how can we have our cake and eat it too? How can we be healthier in that? So something I thought that was interesting, alcohol has a very high toxin level. So the thing that's in our body that filters out toxins is our liver. Our liver has to work really, really hard to detox alcohol, and glucose is the fuel that runs the liver.
Sure.
So in order for our liver to function, to detox a lot of the alcohol, especially late in the nights after the bars, alcohol goes in, liver detoxes, uses a lot of fuel, meaning sugar. That causes a drop in your blood sugar, essentially sending out a signal to say, hey, I'm really hungry right now, which is why you end up in the Whataburger drive-thru at 2 a.m., buying the number 9 taquito with orange juice and a potato.
Sounds like you've been there before.
I just really like breakfast. Okay. So
you and my wife.
So that's something that I thought was like, oh, that kind of makes sense, I guess. But so one thing that I really like to do to bring this full circle is, how do we fix this? Because I don't want to give you all this information and then just go, all right, good luck. Figure it out on your own. Yeah. I'll just hide all the secrets. So for vascular disease, limiting inflammation really starts with blood sugar regulation. And a really good way to do blood sugar regulation is to put your carbs last. So in bodybuilding, there was a thing, always eat the worst thing first, which in bodybuilding, you're like, vegetables, what a waste of space,
right.
So they always say, eat your vegetables first, then eat a bunch of protein for it, and then eat your carbs last, so that, because carbs are delicious, don't overindulge on them. Well, realistically, that is the best way to eat your food in that order.
You're talking about per meal?
Per meal,
okay.
Yeah. So like you have your plate, chicken, broccoli, rice.
Yeah.
Instead of eating the delicious rice first, eat the broccoli, then the chicken, and that has time to kind of stunt the absorption of the glucose in your gastric system. So blood sugar, because, we think about doing like IV sugar or like D10, whatever, D50. When we eat, we also grab that glucose out of the food, but it has to go all the way down into our gastrointestinal system to be able to be absorbed. So in our GI tract, the slower that we can make the sugar get into our GI tract and then out into our blood system, the better. We want slow little hills and valleys, not giant peaks and drops, right? So fixing cardiovascular disease starts with that, veggies and proteins before carbs. Choosing non-inflammatory oils, just like staying away from seed oils, and then low glycemic and low processed food. So really doing like what you said, flipping those boxes over in the grocery store and reading those ingredients. The less ingredients, the better. The ones that are super long, stay away. Yeah. So it's really good.
That was good. I didn't know a lot of that. It's funny. It's funny you talk about the glucose and the alcohol in the liver and all that stuff, and then you feel hungry and all that thing. It's like all these things that happen sometimes. You're like, oh, I get hungry when I drink a lot, and then I want to eat, and like that's crazy. It's like, no, there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
This is why it happens, and I feel like there's a lot of that. I don't know why it happens, but there's got to be a reason for it.
Exactly.
Right? So
yeah, I remember years ago. I remember going, I wonder what sugar really does to the body. And I tried to like Google and YouTube it, and I couldn't find anything. I mean, this was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And, I guess I didn't dig hard enough, but now I'm like, oh man, all this information now is out there. Like I can really get hands on with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's really cool. If you want to jump into the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. Go for it.
Okay. So the second biggest killer, firemen, cancer. So cancer is a really big prevalent thing right now. I think that this is something that's really an interesting take on the cancer in the fire service. So this is firefighter cancer statistics. And I think that this quote is really good when it comes to this. So there's 3 types of lies, damn lies, and statistics. So just to start off with that.
Yep.
So NIOSH, everybody knows, all the firemen knows the NIOSH study, right, for cancer. Firemen are 9% more likely to develop cancer over the course of our lifetime. But if you look at that, and I'm not saying that study is wrong, but I was that kid that I was like, but why? But why do we need to? But what about this?
Yeah.
So in the study was done from 1950 to 2009, and it was a study of 3 major departments, 30,000 firemen of Chicago, Philly, and San Fran. So giant departments, right? If you look at when the NFPA standard for SCBAs was implemented, it was not until 31 years into this study. So almost, it was halfway through the study, I guess.
Yeah.
And a big portion of that study said that the 9% of cancers is asbestos, caused by asbestos, mesothelioma and things. So the University of Miami comes back. They say, well, okay, we want to rebuttal that, and we want to do our own study. And a more recent one. So University of Miami study was from 1978 to 2022. And they said, well, here's the thing. We took 38 studies and did a meta-analysis. And we actually found out that firemen are 7% less likely to get cancer. And so you're like, oh, uh-oh.
Oh, let's see how this goes.
Yeah. How are we going to be the victim now, though? So it really doesn't matter. 7% less, 9% more. Nobody wants cancer. I mean, just whatever. How do we stay away from it? Doesn't matter what the numbers are. When it comes to firefighting as an occupation, a couple of years ago, the IARC, which is the International something people who group carcinogens. Yeah. I was really well versed in that. So they moved group 2A, I think it was a 2A, firefighting as an occupation from 2A or 2B, which was it probably causes cancer. They moved it up to a group 1 carcinogen, meaning it does, in fact, cause cancer, firefighting. So I was like, okay, well, that's bad. It will cause cancer. But if you go look in the rest of the group 1 carcinogens, alcohol, tobacco, processed meats, and birth control, hormonal birth control are all listed as group 1 carcinogens too.
Gotcha.
But I mean, we're okay with those ones. Yeah. We just want to know that we're in an occupation that's going to give us cancer.
Yeah.
And we can use that as some leverage sometimes. So really the point to point out, not trying to step on toes. And I know firemen have died from cancer, not trying to hit anybody in the feels for that. But if you're going to die on this, hill, maybe we don't forget about these other ones and really try to put the point there.
Well, it's like you just said, not ignoring the other ones that do that. I think people are quick to jump on this one thing, and it's a big deal, right? Cancer is a big word, and it's a big trigger word, and they jump on that, and not to get into this, but companies can make a lot of money on that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, we can really push this. And like you said, the original NIOSH study is I had read that before, that the timeline that it was done over, not the majority of it, but a lot of that was before they implemented SCBAs.
Right.
Mhm.
And a lot of it was during a time and in departments where they were just dudes going into places they probably didn't need to be in, right? And so
Well, dudes smoking cigarettes going into fires.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the biggest culture shock to me when you hear like an old
Yeah.
dude talk about fire. It's like, yeah, you smoke a cigarette, that way you can breathe better in the fire.
all
Well,
right, bro.
Condition yourself.
Yeah, but it's important, like you say, to make sure that if we're going to preach cancer awareness and doing what we can to reduce our risk with that, there's not a whole lot other than like most departments have you shouldn't, you can't smoke cigarettes,
Or you can't wear your bunker gear indoors.
well, like stuff like that. But I'm saying like departments push cancer awareness down your throat, right?
Right.
But
Clean
as
cap
far as
concept.
like nicotine and tobacco and all this other stuff, the only thing I've really experienced is like departments having a tobacco policy.
Oh yeah, like
Right.
you can't dip in the truck or shit
Yeah.
like that.
Right.
Like all
well,
this
and
other
like you said, clean cab.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't wear your bunker gear in the station.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you look at where cancer comes from, though, there's, like on PubMed, all the published studies and peer reviewed things, 90 to 95% of cancer is lifestyle driven. So if we are going to go out and set up our cardiovascular system for poor health, and we're going to drink and smoke and be on hormonal birth control and eat all the processed meats, and then go in and say, well, my cancer is occupational. Well, maybe not, but what are the things, how can we prevent those? But you're right, man. The fire services, they've picked this hill to die on and push cancer stuff down your throat. I think that it is good to be aware of it.
Yeah.
I do think that there is a significant amount of information that we're missing for that.
Mhm.
Epigenetics. Have you ever heard of that term?
Nope, not even close.
Super, super cool. There's some really solid audiobooks. I am an audiobook person. I am not.
Same. I
a
can't sit down and
reading book.
read.
No, I don't have time.
I'm actually transitioning back to physical books.
Proud of you.
I know.
Thanks, man. I'm trying.
We've all tried. I don't have the time to sit down and read. I want to listen to it on the go.
Mhm.
Like I can pop my headphones in and still do other things.
Yeah.
But there are some really good books out there. I have a book list on my website, and it has a lot of these books listed. But one is Dirty Genes, and it is GENES, right?
Oh, okay.
And so talking about genetics, not like your blue jeans. And there is one also called epigenetics. But so what that means, it just means above or around your genetics. So if people go, well, I'm predisposed to cancer because my grandpa had it,
Mhm.
or it's just genetic, it just runs in my family.
Yeah.
90 to 95% of cancer is lifestyle related, though. It's not necessarily genetic. Now, 5 to 10%, is genetic. But so when it comes down to genetics, epigenetics is what can we do? So I've heard this in a few fire service symposium things. They say like a light switch is the way that they kind of relate that. So they go, okay, here's a tumor switch. You want to keep the tumor switch turned off, right? And your healthy switch turned on. I'm like, okay, that seems pretty simple.
Yeah, I agree.
We should do that.
Yeah.
Great idea. But then you have to go, okay, well, what are the things that turn on and off those switches? Because it really is kind of that simple.
Mhm.
But when it comes down to sleep, are we getting really poor sleep? Okay, yeah, really poor sleep, that helps to turn the tumor expression genes on. Well, we don't want that. Nutrition, we have to have good nutrition. If we have solid nutrition, it helps to turn those switches off. And so that's kind of where epigenetic comes into. It actually even goes down to mood, where mood that create, like having a good mood, even faking a smile can create different synapses in your brains to function and fire, therefore, releasing like serotonin and dopamine, and then those play into your health, which side note, serotonin and dopamine, I think it's 50% of serotonin and 90% of dopamine, or it might be backwards of those, is created in your GI tract. And so it literally, having a good gut microbiome plays into good mental health from those two.
Whoa.
We
Things.
were talking
I know.
about
Huge.
some of that with the Carencia guys. They brought up a lot
Yes,
of
I listened to that
of
podcast.
the like blood. They do blood work tests with
Mhm.
a lot of their guys and or patients that they see to kind of look at a lot of that stuff because it correlates to their mental health and all that. So taking care of yourself physically, fitness, nutrition, just in general, sleep, all that stuff plays a lot more into mental health than
a
I
lot of
realized.
People, like, well, and like a lot of people want to believe, right? Like a lot of people go, "Oh, this run's not going to make me feel better." Yeah,
it does.
will.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness,
it will.
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
I'm gonna
sure.
tell you right now, the days that, so like at work, for instance, like the last, I don't know, up until the last couple of weeks, the last month or so at work, there's been a lot of stuff going on, right? There's been a lot of tests for different things. People moved around like all over the place, right? And so we kind of been out of that rhythm. So we haven't been doing our normal like workouts every day, and it's just been all off, right?
Right.
Well, the last few shifts, we've been getting back to that, and like all three of us, day one of doing that, we were like, we all feel better. Like we feel great. Like
Right.
the first day we were like, all right, we got to go do it. We got to make ourselves do it. And we didn't want to do it type of thing. And when we were done, we were like, well,
It's
we
huge.
feel pretty good, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the good healthy things. I call them happy bubbles. Like I just imagine all these little bubbles
Yeah.
being produced and little happy bubbles being produced.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it plays into so much, not even just mental health or mood or whatever, but and then mental health gets, brought up, mood gets brought up, then you actually turn those epigenetic switches differently. It all plays in together. It's really well.
Yeah.
So just to further touch on the cancer stuff, in your liver and in your lungs, the two places in your body that it's produced is something that's called glutathione. And so glutathione is the body's most prominent detoxer. It's what the liver uses to detox everything. So I was thinking about, like, we had a house fire the other day, and I thought, what would be the best way to post shift or post sorry, I have this eyelashes. Just losing it. My very natural eyelashes.
They're natural on camera. You're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. I just want somebody to look through my mask and be able to tell. Oh, you're a chick. Cool. Weird. So I thought, what would be the best way to come home or come back from a fire, and like, what's the best detox policy? Fort Worth, actually, I don't know if they still have this policy, but their policy when it was very first implemented was you stay out of service, you go jump in the shower, you take a cold shower first to constrict your pores so that all the nasty that's on your skin can be washed off. And then you turn it on really hot, and then you can dilate your pores and hopefully all that nasty can come out of your pores.
Sure.
And then you go sit in a sauna and dilate out and sweat some more, right? So I was like, okay, I feel like maybe it's a little more than that, like preventing cancer, but that couple
It's not
of
a bad
clean
start.
cabs.
Yeah, not a bad start. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you couple that with clean cabs, no
Yeah,
more
no
cancer,
problem.
right?
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, totally gone. That's all we're missing. So glutathione, its job is to detox. So what is the issue with it? Do we not have enough? Are we overloading what it can actually detox? Like, what is that? So how do we even get more glutathione? If we are going to expose ourselves chronically and constantly to high levels of toxins, which you look at like legacy fuels versus modern day fuel packages, right? So modern fuel is all plastic. It's all made up of really, really bad toxin stuff, especially when it's burning. So our livers essentially are working harder to detox the stuff that we're exposed to in house fires or commercial fires or whatever, versus maybe a grass fire where it's natural vegetation. Maybe it doesn't have to work as hard. Who knows? But so glutathione, it is made up of three things. It is made up of glycine, glutamate, and cysteine. And you're like, who cares, Ashley? Whatever. Well, if you go take your protein powder bottle and you turn it over and you look at the list of the amino acids that are put into these protein powders, it's what makes them up, right? Cysteine, glycine, and glutamate are all amino acids. So you're like, okay, so glutathione is an amino acid. Is that what that is? Well, it is. It's those three plus a sulfur molecule. And sulfur is found in like good leafy veggies, good cruciferous vegetables and things. So
Kale.
yeah, kale, spinach, broccoli.
That's the only one I know is kale.
Just say kale, you'll be okay. So, like, hear me out. If we eat things that are good quality veggies and high in protein, maybe we'll have better functioning livers with good glutathione. What? That's crazy.
That's
Maybe we don't eat
bold
trash.
statement there.
I know.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's weird. So you telling me Whataburger's not good for me?
So what you're saying.
Yeah.
So glutathione, you want to have as much of that as you can, and you want to have as little toxin burden as you can each day. So if you think of it as a bucket, you fill up this bucket and you have a bucket full of glutathione to detox your body. If you keep your bucket full every single day, if you are constantly exposing yourself to chemicals from shampoo, conditioner, your body wash, cologne, and then you go out and you work around fuels and nasty stuff that's burning, and you sleep on plastic and you walk on plastic, carpet and furniture, whatever, you're constantly exposed, right?
Yeah.
So you keep that bucket full. The issue is when you are using up all of your glutathione every day to drop that bucket to empty, to detox the whole bucket. If you keep it full, then when all these little sickness particles are floating around, some may just be viral, some bacterial, some cancer causing. When they come in, and you know how you hear like there's the one snowflake that tipped the hill over. That's all it takes. So the little particle comes, floats in on top of your bucket, and essentially is like, suck it. And it makes the bucket overflow. Then now your body can't keep up.
Right.
And that's when you end up with disease. So if you keep, it's the two ways, either get more glutathione, if you get more glutathione or keeping your bucket emptier, so not being as exposed to toxins, which like living a crunchy lifestyle, theoretically, then you can keep yourself from getting all these other diseases, of course. Okay, now you may speak. Go ahead.
Whoa.
Thank you for coming to my
We need
podcast.
to keep her around more often.
Dude, it's weird because I really actually had nothing to say other than that's probably why I got strep 2 weeks ago. So now following up with that, I probably should have shut up.
No. Man, strep's a whole nother animal. It's weird. My husband and I just had to talk about this the other day because our 11-year-old son, he gets strep a lot. And there's actually people who do have more strep bacteria in their bodies. They're just more prone to it. But having a better GI microbiome, and same thing. Yeah. Keeping higher levels of glutathione is in there. Total, like, just side note on it. So cysteine is one of those amino acids that makes up glutathione. So Tylenol depletes glutathione in your body. So when I was working at Cook Children's in the ER as a nurse, for whatever reason, it's pretty popular for like pre-teenage girls to have, some mental health issues and then take a lot of Tylenol. Maybe that's just because that's what's available or whatever.
They taking Tylenol for the mental health issues?
No.
Or
To
just
overdose.
I see.
They
what you're saying.
overdose
Okay,
on
there it is.
Tylenol.
Yes.
That's
I misunderstood.
Sorry. I probably didn't say the whole thing. So it kind of was like the medicine of choice, and maybe that's just what
Gotcha.
they could get their hands on. The thing that they are given in the ER is a IV bag full of N-acetylcysteine, which N-acetylcysteine is the precursor to glutathione, and glutathione detoxes. But Tylenol will counteract glutathione. So it's, which one do you have more of?
Yeah.
So it's just something to kind of pay attention. If you're always exposing yourself to toxins, maybe don't take as much Tylenol and maybe opt for Motrin or Advil to not work your glutathione as much.
So
lot of
when I had
rules.
strep, I was
You
taking
took much Tylenol?
I was taking like 800 milligrams about every 4 hours. And so, no, it wasn't Tylenol. I was taking
Of
Motrin.
Advil, yeah.
Yeah. So I was taking Motrin, and then Doc was like, hey, we got to go check your kidney function because you took way too much. And I
Yes.
mean like 800, like every 4 hours. I was taking 4, popping them because my throat hurt. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't do anything. And so,
trust me, I know all about freaking taking ibuprofen.
So my kidney function was down on top of just starting test, which dries you out. And then I'm not like a great water drinker as is. Like, so every time you see me take a sip, that's my brain going, please drink water. But like my kidney function was low.
Yeah.
Like they were like, oh, dude, we're going to have to put you on something if you don't get it together. And so, but yeah, I almost killed myself on Tylenol.
I think about that. Well, I say quite frequently because I have gout, which is a huge pain in the ass. Because it just decides sometimes that it hurts a lot. And so when it flares up, I typically, unless it gets really bad, I just take ibuprofen. And now I don't do it every 4 hours. I do it every 8 hours. But I take 4 of them, 800 milligrams, every 8 hours when it hurts. And a few years ago, I won't do it again because a few years ago, I was at work one day and I lost track of how often I had taken it and it was hurting real bad. So I just took a whole bunch of ibuprofen throughout the day, and I was so sick that night.
Dude.
I woke up and I was like, I do not feel good. And I was like, you need to find somewhere to throw up right now. Like now.
Yes,
so
Motrin. So like Tylenol acts on your liver, Motrin acts on your stomach and on your kidneys.
Yeah. So ever since then, I was like, oh, it is important to make sure you're not taking too much of this.
Oh yeah, and it'll make your back hurt because it's actually messing with your kidneys, and your kidneys like
and
you're
you got to
just
take
like,
something else.
oh my god.
It's
So
it's a never ending.
So
circle. So just like really looking at what is the best way to detox after fires. That's really like the goal, right?
Yeah.
To not venture into the world of clean cabs and whatever all the things. I'm not going to get on that. Yeah. But
extra sets of bunker gear is what we're doing.
We do that too. We washing. But the 3 most important things for detoxing is the 3 P's, and it's pee, poop, perspire. So making sure you're hydrated so that you're peeing, making sure that you're intaking a lot of fiber so that you are pooping that out, because your GI tract is literally the waste. Like that's where the waste goes. So it's all the trash that your body doesn't need. And so you want to get it out. So, people who are like clean freaks, they will be like, oh, I only like to go to the bathroom 1 time a day. And, I'm like, well, that's fine as long as you're going, but like multiple times is even better.
Yeah.
But then perspiring. So whatever that means, does that mean sit in the sauna and open up your pores and get all that stuff out? Or does it mean exercising or, whatever? We live in Texas. It's just a part of it.
Yeah. Just during the day.
Yeah. So those are the 3 pathways for detoxing. But so as far as for cancer, how do we fix that? How do we get away from so much cancer? Yeah. The first thing is trying to lower your total body burden. How full are you keeping that bucket? Promoting glutathione production with good nutritional sources, intaking, and then keeping those detox pathways open. Pee, poop, perspire.
Right.
Cool.
So yeah. Okay. So the 3rd biggest killer of firemen is mental health issues right now. So been to too many funerals for guys suffering from mental health. But just like cancer, I think that there's more to it, personally. So like, where does this stuff come from? Why is this an issue? Why is it an issue now? What can we do to prevent it? Things like that.
Sure.
So when it comes to mental health for firemen, being aware of it. Like I've heard you guys talk about in past podcasts, like I just felt like something was off, or I could tell when Brandon was having an off day, but then he had off days a lot, all in a row. Like
that was just his new normal. Yeah.
This is him now.
Yeah.
So being aware, and that is going to look like emotional awareness, physical fitness. Do you not have any interest in anything anymore?
Right.
Mental, as far as difficulty concentrating, you can't, and something that's abnormal for you. Like you're normally really good at this and now you're having issues. And then, so talking, like you talked with the Carencia guys, testing, doing those blood work on those things. Tanya Glenn is a lady who is a first responder therapist down South Texas. She speaks at a lot of the Texas Fire Chiefs conferences. Sure. And so my husband brought her name up to me initially. And so I started kind of doing some research on her. Have never talked with her, but I know that in her practice and like Dr. T, who's up in somewhere in North Texas, a lot of the basis of this is...
I think she's out of Frisco.
Okay.
We're going to try to get her on.
Yeah, she's awesome. A lot of the basis of this is doing blood work. So like, where are you at nutritionally in these levels? When it comes to more than just macros, because that's the bodybuilding lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Looking into deeper than that, into micros. So if you go look on PubMed and you type in nutrient levels associated with mental health disease or mental health illnesses. So I listed them on my little thing that I showed down at leadership, but they're just titles. And I mean, it's just a couple of from 100, hundreds of them. So if you are deficient in B vitamins, magnesium, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, if like those are the big top 4. If you have deficiencies in those 4 plus others, then you are setting yourself up for mental health issues. And the correlation between the two is so significant that once you know that, you're like, oh, well, maybe I need to know what my levels are. But your doctor doesn't just randomly test you for that stuff, right? So that's where I think in my practice with Healthology, I think it's really, really important to have a baseline of that stuff. Whether it be through your doctor or whoever, however you can get it. I mean, good grief. I will send lab orders to you and you could go take them to wherever and get them drawn. I draw them for my guys, or you can, oh my gosh, even on the internet nowadays, there's a bunch of like self-ordering things, but having the knowledge of those levels is super important. Because that really just, if you're vitamin D deficient and then you go to therapy, but you never fix your vitamin D deficiency, therapy is great, but maybe that's the underlying factor that is keeping you from getting over that little hump, right? And then physical activity, like that's a big thing for mental health as well. You have to keep your hormones in balance. And if you don't keep your hormones in balance with, like, so big muscles, strength training promotes testosterone. If you don't keep your testosterone levels optimal, then you feel like crap. And when you feel like crap, then you set yourself up for depression and irritability. And it's a cycle for sure.
Well, and so I know this is not going to sound educated at all, but so magnesium, it is which one for the brain?
So there's a lot.
So it's like
magnesium of itself is the regular salt, but then there is threonate, glycinate.
It's threonate, right? Threonate's the brain because magnesium citrates the
for your
shoot.
GI. Yep. Yes.
But
100%.
so you think about it though, right? Like, so like, let's say you're forgetting stuff, right? That will wreak havoc on your mental health, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm going crazy. But realistically, you could be magnesium threonate deficient
right.
and like you're just losing track of things because your brain's just not firing like it should. Or you could have like hypoglycemia, right? Which makes people insane. But like all these things that go back and relate to your gut health and all that and your eating habits, you're like, oh man, I was just eating McDonald's every day and there was zero nutrients in that, right? So
and I'll probably just say this a lot, but it's a cycle. Like when you feel like trash, you want to eat trash. Like if if you're sick, you're like, I don't want to eat healthy food.
No. The last thing you want is, chicken noodle soup.
Exactly.
You really want a big juicy burger.
I also, when I don't feel good or I don't feel, if I'm depressed or whatever, I don't want to take the time to cook.
Oh, God, no.
too.
No,
that's the
that's
last
just
thing.
that's a huge task. If you're not in a positive headspace, you're like, I'm not going to cook. That's so much stuff I got to do. I'm just going to run down the street to Taco Casa and grab dinner.
Right.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So. I will say since I've had a kid, which like during pregnancy, same thing. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm only eating ice cream. That's the only thing I want to eat. This kid's gonna be like 700 pounds.
Yeah.
But I have tried to find ways, like what's the easiest, quickest way to prep healthy food? Is it having it pre-cut up and buying it from Brookshire's already? Like it's a little more expensive, but time is money.
Yep.
So it's, it is with that. Like Costco has some really solid pre-prepped stuff, which is really good. So we try to keep our fridge stocked up with that stuff. And even with kids, like the kids have snacks in the pantry and things, and everything's organized. And, like we try to put the healthier snacks in viewing range, but they know that the M&Ms are back here.
Right.
But maybe they'll see them first. But really, like if we wash and dry fruits and veggies and leave them out on the counter, they'll walk by and eat those, and they won't ask for gummies and lollipops
Yeah.
until later.
Yeah.
I want whipped cream. Okay, I know. So having that availability is definitely a big thing. So for mental health, though, a few things that are really, really prominent in helping either push that off or working through those things, whatever is therapy, optimizing those micronutrients, and then EMDR. Did y'all talk EMDR with the guys?
I want to say it might have come up briefly, but we didn't really discuss it with them. And I didn't even know what that was until about a month ago. I was talking about it with Kramer, I think.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah. And same. It's incredible.
Sorry, not to be dumb, but isn't that red light therapy?
No.
Oh.
Okay, I know. Yes and no. So there is a red light, or there can be a red light. Red light therapy, which I think that maybe you're talking about, is where it's like the box of red light and it shines on your face. That rejuvenates your like cellular level. Like it goes into your cellular level and cleans, so that when you have trash cells rejuvenating with other trash cells, they have a baby trash cell. You don't want that. So red light
See that
therapy
all the time.
Yeah, crazy. So red light therapy goes in at a cellular level and helps to rejuvenate the cells. That way you're reproducing good cells eventually. EMDR is something totally different, and we can talk about that in just a second. The IAFF did a study on therapy in firemen. And so they found out from the study, they said that 81% of firemen said that they fear going to therapy because they will be then viewed as weak. Right? And I know I've heard you guys say this before.
Yes.
Yes. So I don't want to be seen as weak if I need to go to therapy. And I feel like I don't think that I'm your typical chick. I don't like emotion. I don't want to talk about it. I bottle it up and file it away, and I'm good. Like we don't have to talk about that at all. And my poor husband, he's an external processor. He likes to talk about lots of things, and I don't. I'm internal processor. So with that being said, I think there is a good amount of the fire service talking about mental health now. It's at all the conferences. I mean, the podcast. So getting it out there that it's not weak or bad to talk about it. So a good quote that I've heard: therapy gives you the ability to stay at the top of your game, all mentally, physically, and emotionally. So it really is like we do marital counseling, and so we call it marital CEs. We got to do CEs for EMS. We got to do training at TCC for fire stuff. We call that one marital CEs. Therapy, to me, I go see my counselor lady like every 6 to 8 weeks. And it's just my mental CEs. It's, like, hey, here's what I have gone through. Tell me if I'm doing the right thing, or what do you think? Yeah. Having somebody to bounce something off of.
Well, it's funny you call it CEs, because I hadn't thought about it like that. But we just talked about on the last episode, I was talking about how I just started going to see a therapist for a lot of reasons. In the last month or so, there's some things that have happened that have brought up a lot of other things and kind of got me to a point that I was like, it's not that I can't handle this one thing. It's that this one thing was kind of the tipping point of all these other things that I've never dealt with, that I just put away and didn't talk about.
Straw meat camel.
Yeah. So we just talked about me going to therapy, and the person that I went to seek advice on who I needed to go and talk to, the way I phrased it was that it like, I've got Brandon, I've got other friends that I can go and talk to, and that's great. And they're always there to listen, and I vent to them, whatever. And that's fantastic. But I needed somebody I could go and talk to that could actually provide me some tools to help process some of those issues. So kind of thinking about it like CEs is I think a pretty interesting perspective of, like, in our job, we go through CEs all the time, so we can keep up to date with, here's how you can deal with this problem and solve it. So
I think that maybe if instead of saying like you have to go see a therapist, we could just go, hey, mental CEs for the month, like whatever. Most firemen will be like, okay.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna click through that.
Well, I was
one.
about to say, then you're gonna get into the
Vector solutions.
the vector solutions where, all right, I'm gonna leave this computer on. Anybody want to go do something else?
Yeah. Oh, I've had like 4 screens going at one time, like for sure.
Yeah.
You know, but it is good. Their readiness group, which is they are based out of like Decatur, but they are totally on the circuit for fire department mental health stuff. And I just went the other day and listened to Kelly Guidry and a helper of hers. I don't remember what the other girl's name was, but them talk about that.
We know Kelly pretty well.
Really?
Now.
Oh, she's great, man. So yeah, I sat through her class, and then Brenda Tillman works in that group as well. The therapist I see she shares an office with Brenda, but incredible ladies. There is, I'll give you the website that they told me to give out, which I can't remember what it is right now, but it's.
We'll link it. You can tell us later.
Yeah. But I asked my therapist, I said, hey, like in Healthology, if I have a fireman that is like, I want therapy, but I don't know where to start. And also I don't want to pay for it because it's expensive,
that
right?
Sounds so familiar.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
Weird.
That exact phrase is what I said like a month ago.
You're not this.
I don't know where to go, and I don't know how to pay for it.
Like it is. Yeah. It is common. I don't want to pay for it, and also I want it to be fireman based because like we're so screwed up. We're gonna screw up the therapist for listening to us.
Yo, that's for real though.
Those
that's
poor
real.
people. So if you have somebody who that's what their job is, that's who you need to go to.
Yeah.
So I have the website for that, and we'll link it that way because it gets you in, and it gets you a minimum of 6 free sessions.
Oh, that's cool.
And that way you can go through. And there is a grant out there that I know Brenda uses. My husband sees Brenda for his therapy, and she does all of his stuff through grant. So it's feasible, and it's out there, and it is really good.
Yeah.
So sleep, talking about mental health and sleep. There are stages of sleep, and I don't know if you track your sleep, but if you don't, and you have an Apple Watch, which we all are connoisseurs of, you can track it with your Apple Watch or your Garmin or whatever.
Whoop Band's good.
Yeah, Whoop Band, the Fit, whatever. I wear an Oura Ring, which does it as well, because I like to charge my Apple Watch at night.
Yeah.
So I don't want to wear it all night and then it'd be dead. But my Oura Ring stays charged for like, I think 6 days. And so I use it. I also use it for like hormone and cycle tracking and all the girl things. So it works really well for me for that. But sleep, I'm obsessed with tracking my sleep. And my husband's funny because a couple nights ago, I forgot to put it on, like total breakdown. Like, oh my gosh. And he's like, what? Why are you being like this? Are you just not going to know how you slept? And so therefore you don't know how to act today. I'm like, that's 100% true.
Yeah.
But so the stages of sleep. So you have 2 different stages of sleep. You have NREM, which is non-REM, and then REM, which is rapid eye movement, right? So NREM stage 1 is like when you start to fall asleep, you're dozing off. That's your latency period. It's when like you lay down, how long does it take? Alcohol shortens that latency period to where you lay down and it's a depressant, right? So a lot of people think, well, I'm going to use alcohol to fall asleep because it helps me to fall asleep really quickly. And we'll talk about what alcohol does for the rest, but alcohol shortens the latency period. Blue light and bright lights, stress, high cortisol extends the latency period. So you end up in that NREM stage 1 for longer. NREM stage 2 is where, so I think of Amazon packaging facility. So NREM stage 2 is memory consolidation. So you're like the Amazon line worker. You're getting all the orders that Ashley has ordered today, because let's be real, that's probably what it is. And you're putting all these things into a box, and then you ship it to the next station. So NREM stage 3, that is the deepest part of your sleep. That happens about 30 minutes after you fall asleep. Everyone knows, I think, everyone knows that when you fall asleep at work and 30 minutes after you fall asleep, there will be a tone and you will miss it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's about that time frame. So that is
Yep.
NREM stage 3. That's the deepest portion of NREM sleep. So you're very, very still. You go into the very, very deep sleep. The purpose of that is muscular repair and body regeneration. So
Mhm.
your body is going in and it's fixing all the things. It's when all the building blocks of aminos go to the muscles and build up and build bigger tissue. Everything gets healthier. But it is deepest. And so if that's when the call comes in, probably you're going to miss the tone for that. But just it's something
Is
interesting.
that the one where you wake up and you don't know where you are and you don't know why the lady in the ceiling is talking to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're like, what's happening?
Yeah.
What's happening? Yeah. I
What
never sleep
happens to
through
me
calls.
sometimes is I'll wake up already standing in my room with my hat in my hand, and I'm like, "What am I doing?"
Yeah.
And then I realize somebody's talking to me. I'm like, "Oh, the red light's on.
Oh, yeah.
I got to do something."
Mhm.
Yes. That is 100% where you're at.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 stages of NREM, but then REM sleep, rapid eye movement, that is where, and there's actually a really cool Andrew Huberman thing that he talks about rapid eye movement and what it does in the brain. But so REM sleep, its job is emotional regulation and skill learning. So it's when everything that you've practiced goes and it gets tunneled in there and filed away and it sticks.
Mm.
So your prefrontal cortex up here, and then in the back of your brain, your filing cabinet, you want to move thoughts and process that are up here. You want to move those thoughts and memories and calls and all the stressors. You want to take those and you want to move them into the back, into your filing cabinet.
Mhm.
And when you say, man, I know that I've just got to reach back in the filing cabinet and I can't quite find it. That's a real thing. Like it really does get back there. So that's what happens during REM. It takes it and moves it back there, files it away. It's not gone forever. It's just stored in a nice system. But if we disrupt the REM cycle or we're not getting enough REM sleep in our sleeping time period, then we will struggle with keeping things. Either we'll be forgetful because we don't really know where in our brain they are, or they are all stuck up here in the front. And we don't want them all up here because we don't have that much storage space, right? We want them to go to the little data center or whatever, the filing cabinet. So if you think of it, I think Brenda Tillman was actually the one that talked about this. If you think about it as a set of plumbing pipes, if there is something that's clogging up one of the plumbing pipes, it's not going to work efficiently, right? They're designed to work a specific way. So EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, is something that trained therapists are able to do. So it's kind of a new term on the streets of the Fireland, but it is done by the therapist there, and you go through whatever the things are that are stuck up here. And the whole goal of it is to put it back there in the filing system. So what essentially happens? So this is why I said something about the red light. Back in the day, they used to use it looked like almost a light bar. And it was a little light that would go back and forth like this. And you would follow it with your eyes. And so your eyes are moving rapidly back and forth. And you would talk to your therapist during this time, doing whatever. I'm not trained in it, so I don't really know. But they do all the things, talk through all these things. And as you're talking about them, it slowly begins to push it back into the filing system. So just like Amazon, it finds what address it goes to and then it ships it off. Well, nowadays they do it they call them tappers. And so you put them in each hand, these little buzzers, and they do bilateral stimulation of these buzzes, and it mimics REM wave with your brain. So you can have your eyes open, you can have your eyes closed, but this bilateral stimulation helps as you do the whole therapist thing of the EMDR. It helps to move those thoughts back. So if you're really struggling with a call or something at home or somebody died or whatever it is, and you just cannot seem to get past it, it helps it to funnel through those clogged pipes, if you will, back into the filing cabinet. And then you can work. And it's not it's not some magic trick like, oh my gosh, I'm all healed. But over time it does help it.
Yeah, dog.
So,
I'm gonna go find some EMDR tomorrow.
It's incredible, man. So yeah, the link, the Mental Health for Heroes link, that can set you up. And I really do think it's important to find a therapist that is trained in first responder wellness,
Yes.
because not only can they probably handle what we're throwing out at them, but they will know how to EMDR our specific things, calls and whatnot. So talking about REM sleep, this is why I think it's important to track your sleep. Because the ones that not just track the length of sleep, because that's easy to do with an alarm clock,
Sure.
but to track your sleep cycles. So in your sleep cycles, you have the first portion, the first half of your sleep cycle. So say we have 8 hours of sleep. The first half of it, you are primarily in that deep, deep non-REM sleep. But the back half of your sleep is where most of the REM is occurring. So really in the first half to sleep, your body's getting down there. It's rejuvenating. It's just like the Amazon place. They're packaging everything up, getting it all ready to go.
Yeah.
The back half is where it gets shipped and filed away. So if you are like me, I used to think, I'll just sleep when I'm dead. It's good. I only need 3 to 4 hours. I'm solid. So it really, the quality and quantity matters in this. You really do need to hit all those hours because the back half of that is where you're getting the good REM. If you're not getting that back half few hours, then you are doing yourself a disservice by limiting the REM, and therefore you're keeping all that stuff up there and you're setting yourself up for mental health issues because you're literally not sleeping enough to file it away.
And so it just kind of piles on, and once you're under the pile, you buried yourself alive.
Exactly. So REM sleep, we'll just talk about alcohol real quick. So REM sleep and alcohol use. Alcohol. So we talked about alcohol as a depressant, gets you quickly through that latency period and drops you into deep sleep, right? Alcohol limits REM sleep significantly. So in the 8 hours of sleep, if you go and you are, super crunchy, you haven't had any alcohol, whatever, you have 0 drinks on board, you should be getting about 2.5 hours of REM sleep out of those 8 hours. And the 70% of that 2.5 hours is in the back 4 hours of your sleep. So I know that was a lot of statistics and numbers all of a sudden, but just no alcohol, 2.5 hours of REM, mostly in the back half of your sleep. If you drink 2 drinks, it drops it by an hour. So now you're only getting an hour and a half. So alcohol makes it to where we don't get into that REM as often. 4 drinks, you only get an hour of REM, and then 6 drinks, you're getting 10 minutes of REM total.
Ooh.
So let's, real quick before we go too far, how do we define a drink?
A drink is a standard drink, 12 ounces of beer, 6 ounces of wine, or an ounce of hard liquor.
Same way the cops do.
Yeah. 2 beers. Only had 2 beers.
Yeah.
The same way the cops do.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yes. So no, not typical fireman. I'm going to have a double, but pour it extra hard and a splash of
Counts
Sprite.
as one.
Yeah, that's not one.
That sounds like one to me. I don't know. My math is adding up to 1.
I was like, when I was a kid, my mom was like, you can have 1 scoop of ice cream. And I'm like, biggest scoop I can get, Like, this
I'm
is
gonna
1
scoop
scoop.
this whole freaking tub out.
Yeah. No, so it is standard size of measurements.
Yeah.
So that's just something to be cognizant of. Now, having your cake and eating it too, like all firemen want to do. Okay, we want to have our normal life. We want to be able to drink. We want to be able to have good REM sleep and not have mental health. So how can we get those two combined? Alcohol metabolizes in your body a drink per hour on average. So if you know that you want to have 2 heavy pours of whatever, essentially we'll say that's 4
Blanton's.
drinks. Okay. Yeah. Then you would want to back up your sleep at least by 4 hours. So if it equals 4 drinks, back your sleep at 4 hours. So I'm going to go to bed at 10, 4 hours to metabolize. You should cut off your drinking at 6.
Oh, I thought you meant go
The
to bed
problem
at
with
6.
that is that 30 minutes after I stop drinking, I'm ready to be asleep.
Yes. Oh, for sure. For sure. You just gotta do better. So, or drink more
Vodka
caffeine.
Red Bulls.
Yeah, and I don't know.
Vodka Red Bulls.
Kids don't really believe in, daddy had a drink. It's time for him to, he needs to sleep in later today. That ain't going to work, Chief.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They just wake up earlier that next day.
Oh, dude, for real,
That's
though.
a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be something that I would pay attention to. Either try to work yourself back on the time clock, try to cut the quantity down. One of those two things. Or say, hey, on weekdays, we don't drink. Or, hey, on the days and wise or whatever. So actually, my station, we are a snobby little station. We pride ourselves in being the best at everything, but maybe we're not, but we think we are. So
every fireman ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we are on this kick of athletic beer. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It is non-alcoholic beer. They have all of these different kinds, but it's all non-alcoholic. So they have like lagers and IPAs and Mexican lagers even. But they're really, really, really good. And like White Claw has a 0.0 out now. Tecate, gosh, man, it's NA beers and NA drinks and stuff are all the rage right now. I can't find a wine that's non-alcoholic that tastes good yet, though. But if you like the taste of beer, it's an alternative, or you can alternate. Like have a real beer, then have an NA beer, and then have a real beer.
Yeah.
So it's you can't have it all. Like you can't have good mental health and be a drunk.
I just want to look cool in front of my friends.
Yeah. So that's just something to think about. The thing with firemen, I think the cycle here is they can't sleep because they have mental health issues. So they drink to fall asleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when they fall asleep, they don't get into REM because they've had alcohol, which only messes up the mental health portion of it again. So it's this horrible cycle. So, small changes, implementable changes is where it's at. Mm-hmm. If that means cutting the alcohol back by one drink or alternating with the NA or whatever, that's a good move.
Boys, you heard it here first. Ashley Watson said you got to stop drinking. Done.
Hey, I didn't say that. But it's a better move. Yeah, for sure. For how do we fix this in the mental health topic? So number one would be therapy and peer support groups, which I know that you just finished some training on that.
Yeah.
Which is great. And I think cross-referencing departments, like if we work together, I probably don't want to talk to you about my issues. So having another department who's trained in that.
Definitely.
Yeah, utilizing that. Optimizing your vitamin and nutrient levels. So all the vitamin D, magnesium, omega-3s, those things. And then sleep hygiene and EMDR. So sleep hygiene, I know we didn't really talk about that yet, but sleep hygiene when it comes into melatonin and cortisol, those play big parts of sleep hygiene. So blue light, which if you think of light colors, back in the day, all lights used to be kind of like those, a more yellowy color, and now they're more of a blue hue because they're very pretty and like super bright. Well, blue light, 5 minutes of blue light decreases your melatonin production by 98%.
Whew.
So we run a call middle of the night, right? We all get cozy in our little beds and then boop, right? With our phones. First thing you do is throw your phone up in front of your face.
Yeah.
So not only is it bright, but now you have blue light in your face. And so then you go through all the Instagram reels, put your phone down. I just don't know why I can't go to sleep. This is so frustrating.
Been there, done that.
Yep.
Yes.
Last tour. Yes.
100%. Yeah. So there is a hack on that. If you go into your settings, and it doesn't matter if it's Android or Apple product, if you go into your settings, there is an option to turn the blue color more to a warmer color. And it is, I think on Apple, it's actually called like night shift or night mode. And it turns it to more of a warm color. And so it takes away the blue light. And then if you take your brightness down, that helps as well to not keep you awake. So you want to have as much melatonin as you can because that's the sleep hormone. And you want cortisol to be as low as you can. So they oppose each other. So having a lot of melatonin, no or a little bit of bright blue light, and then low cortisol is best for sleep.
Recently, I read a study on melatonin and how we are giving it to our children, and it's like messing up that hormone for like life.
Yeah, I don't actually know. We give Autumn melatonin sometimes, and not all the time.
Mhm.
And sometimes I think it maybe messes her sleep up in the middle of the night.
Right.
For me, I will only take like a 0.5 milligram or 1 milligram of melatonin because I get really weird dreams if I take any more than that.
That too.
Yeah.
And so I've started to like, so he's weird. You talked about the little red eye. So I have a sleep mask and it's by whoever, and it has the red lights in it to help you fall asleep faster and longer.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And then I use hostage tape.
Oh yeah, mouth tape.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
And
good.
that's helped out a lot too. It's helped me achieve a deeper sleep for longer because I'm not waking myself up with my sleep apnea or whatever.
Right.
And so all those things I've started to realize over like the past like 6 months, I've started doing all this stuff. A little longer than that, like past 8 months. Anyway, all that has started to help out a lot, right? So I didn't realize how much sleep I wasn't getting while Ashton was pregnant because she was tossing and turning, kicking me this, that, and the other. And then at work, you don't really get to do all that, right? Like you have to kind of be sleep but awake, listening for tones and stuff like that. So I've realized when I come home from work, I'm a lot more tired than when I have all my little gadgets and gadgets to go to sleep.
Do you use nose strips?
So hostage makes a nose strip.
Okay.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah, I have tiny little nose holes, so like I need the extra help. Something that is cool about that. So you know how we have all the little fibers inside your nose and then snot? The whole goal of that stuff, their whole job is to capture the bad things as we breathe in through the air. Our mouths don't have that. So if you're a mouth breather, you are more apt to be sick because your nose can't catch and filter.
Yeah.
I totally breathe out of my mouth like I live like
Well, and so,
yeah.
But I do like the mouth tape nose strip thing.
Elementary school trauma. Here we go. I had a girl told me my breath stink once, and I just stopped breathing out of my mouth after that. Like I've been a nose breather from then on. Just so if you hear me like look
Never
at me,
again.
and I'll get in the mic and I'll go. Just tell me to back up because that's what I do. Like I breathe out of my mouth, and I'm
just
like,
get rid of it later.
Oh, that's funny.
Thanks, post.
But yeah, for sure. That is a really good thing. The mouth tape and stuff, especially if you struggle with it.
Yeah.
I think it keeps it healthier overall. Okay, so rolling into adrenal health. Adrenal health is something that I don't think that has popularized in the fire service yet, but I think that it may be coming.
I don't know anything about adrenal health.
It's super, like, you're gonna be like, oh snap, I had no idea. Like, so your adrenal glands, for all the lowly EMTs out there, sit on top of your kidneys. And that was totally a shot at my husband and whoever else, but
Me.
So yeah, I knew. So your adrenal glands sit on top of your kidneys in, the back area. They're tiny little, they look like little hats on the kidneys. But they have huge roles. So they secrete hormones. And so we're like, adrenal health, like whatever, that's stupid. Who cares? But when you think about, okay, they secrete hormones, we usually think of cortisol. Well, they do secrete cortisol, but they also secrete sex steroids too, which is your testosterone, estrogen. And now all the firemen are like, oh, okay, I'm on board.
Say more.
Yes, please. So cortisol, DHEA, sex steroids, and adrenaline all come from your adrenal glands. So we have to look at, why does that matter? Why do we what do we do with our adrenal glands? How do we keep them healthy? So overnight, when you go to sleep, you lose on average 1 liter of water in your body. And so there's 3.78 liters in a gallon. So almost 1/4 of a gallon is what you're losing overnight. And that's like breathing. You get up to pee, sweating, whatever. So you already wake up in a dehydrated state. So there's a thing called cortisol curve. And so when you wake up, your melatonin, remember we were saying melatonin and cortisol are opposite. So you want to go to sleep with low cortisol and high melatonin. So this is kind of something cool, I think. When sunlight hits you, it's a bright light, it drops melatonin. And so like people who rise with the sun, which not me, there's no sun at 4 a.m., but People who rise with the sun, their melatonin goes down and their cortisol begins to come up. So there's 3 things that wake you up in the morning. Not that wake you up, but they rise in the morning time.
Sure.
So you see where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Your blood sugar rises, your cortisol rises, and your testosterone rises. So all you firemen, you can all go home and tell your little lady friends, hey, my morning wood is a sign of healthy testosterone. You're welcome. And so
Yeah,
There
that's
you go.
what she's gonna get from that.
that's what she's going to take. She's going to go, yay. But that is a sign of healthy testosterone production. Your blood sugar rises to stimulate all the energy of all the body production. And then your cortisol rises to start your day. You got to get up out of bed. It helps to give you energy. That's an okay thing. That's a good, healthy thing for that to happen. You want those things to rise. However, you also, it's just like on a roller coaster at Six Flags. You're going up, 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 up. You also want to come down throughout the day so that you can end on low cortisol so that your melatonin can begin going high to go to sleep, right? When we start the morning dehydrated, our adrenal glands that produce all these different hormones, if we give them a cattle prod, then they begin to overproduce one and underproduce the other. And is it going to be testosterone's high and cortisol's low? Of course not.
No.
It's going to be the other way. So your adrenal glands will overproduce cortisol and underproduce testosterone. And so if you think of it in real life, you wake up, you've had a long first 24 hours at the station, you're already sleep deprived, now you're dehydrated, you go straight for the coffee maker or crack your Celsius or whatever, right?
Red Bull.
Yeah. Okay. Red Bull. Monsters, whatever. I'm a Celsius lover. I am not going to shun caffeine because it does help function.
Yeah.
But doing it in the correct order is key for there. So water is very, very good to hydrate, right? But then having those other elements. So sodium, potassium, magnesium, adding all those things into the water only benefits it better. So I personally like Relight. I add a scoop of Relight to a shaker cup of water, and that's my beginning of my day. And if you are deficient in those elements, then your energy is only going to suck later on if you're not getting those things. So starting with water, some people just do like pink Himalayan salt and some lemon juice. That's a good way to hydrate. And then there is also some time frame, 45 minutes, I've heard up to 90 minutes of letting that cortisol peak. And as it begins to come down, then you can start adding in your caffeine.
So I'd heard that before that it is hugely beneficial to wait that 90 minutes, whatever it is, after you wake up to start drinking coffee. And I don't remember where I saw it, but it was talking about whatever it is that your body produces. If you drink caffeine as soon as you wake up, it kills it from producing whatever that thing is. And then you have that caffeine that keeps you going for however long it does. And once it's gone, it's gone.
Right.
Instead of letting your body build that up and then have that caffeine a little bit later in the day, and your body's already built up to get you through the rest of the day. So that sounds pretty similar to what you just explained.
Yeah.
So I do intermittent fasting. We get a lot of our food after, typically for me, it's somewhere around 11 to noon. Dude, like when you wake up and you're like exhausted and you want to go get a Red Bull, I usually try not to drink a Red Bull without food. And that's where you get a lot of your vitamins from.
Okay.
So the question becomes,
Wait, food or Red Bull?
I get all my vitamins from Red Bull.
I get all my vitamins
program.
I misunderstood.
I get all my vitamins from food, right? So because food is a major player in that and getting your hormones right. But also at the same time, I'm like intermittent fasting, so I usually don't eat till noon. But I have, by then, I've probably already had 2 Red Bulls.
So I will just tip you off for this. Most sugar-free energy drinks break a fast.
Oh, well, we just learned something. We're learning here, boys. Look at us go.
So
that explains everything.
Yeah.
Wonder why I was gaining weight. Damn.
So really the only true way to know is to check your blood sugar. it like a continuous glucose monitor is the best, but they're pricey. So you could just poke your finger and check it intermittently.
That's free
and
at
see.
work.
That is. That's. I mean, we would not do that. But also, so you have to know everybody's body responds differently, but usually sugar-free anything sweetened will break a fast, which negates your whole intermittent fasting at that point. Black coffee or coffee with MCT oil, which is just a pure fat. Well, fats very, very minorly raise blood sugar, but like sucralose, aspartame, monk fruit, all the things that are like the artificial sweeteners are really low sweeteners. They will still raise your blood sugar, which kicks you out of fasting. So I would research that for you. To speak, sorry. You're not the first person I've said that to. To speak to the vitamin versus element portion. So you want to hydrate sufficiently with water, but then if you can hydrate with like minerals and elements, that's even better. When it comes to vitamins, you want to get your vitamins. I mean, if you're eating in that 8-hour period, you're getting your vitamins, whatever. Right. Now, the better quality of food, the better the vitamins. We have crappy soil, so usually you don't get very good vitamin growth out of the soil and then into the food. And a lot of times it's like kind of trash or commercially processed. There's a whole thing. So I would say just like test your levels. There's a big thing, test, don't guess, in functional medicine. So to come out of that, just give yourself some hydration in the mornings before your caffeine. So hydrate before you caffeinate would be your little thing to think about that.
There it is.
Yeah. So adrenal fatigue, since adrenals are the things that produce your hormones, adrenal fatigue creates hormone disruption, right? So now we're firemen, we're tired, our sleep sucks. So now we've set ourselves up for mental health issues with sleep deprivation or lack of REM sleep, alcohol, lack of REM sleep. Now we go into adrenal fatigue because we're tired, we're caffeinating, we're not hydrating properly. We have high cortisol levels all the time. That offsets hormonal balance. So then we're like, well, I don't know why my testosterone's so low. Well, here you go. Here's some information. That's not a shot at y'all either, because I deal with the same thing. Now, women's hormones, I mean, that's an absolute disaster, land.
Yeah.
Like,
it's, we have time for that.
No, it's. I don't have time for that. It's a lot, man. But so not only are we looking at sleep with hormones, but adrenal health also. So, very, very first thing, hydrate before you caffeinate. If it just means just water, or if you're adding in Relight or Element, like the LMNT little packets, those are all really good things. Those are my two favorite. Relight's my favorite because it has one extra element in it, a mineral. Just remember your caffeine and alcohol cutoff time. So caffeine half-life. Caffeine lives a full life for 10 hours. So a half-life of caffeine would be 5 hours. So if you drink a Red Bull at noon, by 10 p.m. is when the last bit of that caffeine is getting out of your system. Jesus. So if you are drinking them at 5 p.m.
So when I'm drinking a drink at 7 p.m.
Yeah, not good.
Oh my God.
So not only are you raising your cortisol, but you are, it goes into adenosine receptors in your brain, everything. Caffeine stunts the adenosine receptors in your brain, and so it makes it harder for you to go to sleep. So caffeine, 10 hours, full life, 5-hour half-life. Alcohol, an hour per drink. So I try personally to cut off my caffeine at noon, cut off any alcohol at 6 or 7. Those are nice round numbers, right? And then turning off blue light sources so that you can spike your melatonin, decrease your cortisol for adrenal.
So intermittent fasting, you got to be done by 7, right? Because at some point, most people are like, oh, I can do 9. No, it's got to be done closer to 7, because what happens is your body is still trying to digest and process that food. Same along with alcohol. So alcohol slows down your body's digestion of food. So every time you drink alcohol with like any other carb, which is what alcohol is, it's like, nah, dude, that's way too much. We got to slow down. And it does that. So 7 is a for sure nice round number, because you think like being done with dinner and being done with food at 7.
Yeah.
Alcohol.
Yeah, cut everything off at 7.
Mm-hmm.
It for us that's easier said than done at our household. I mean, like usually Steven's getting home around like 6:30 and then like kid dilemma, drama, bath time. Like what even is bath time? And like you're fine, we'll bathe you tomorrow. And you know, like 9:00 we're finally trying to sit down and microwave our dinner. It's a goal. It's definitely small baby steps, you know. Implementable changes. Okay, so the last little part of my whole little spiel really comes down to hormones, which I feel like is everybody's like secret interest, right? Everybody wants to know about testosterone. How do I get my testosterone up? So there is a thing called the sex steroid pathway, and it looks like a chemistry chart if you were just to go Google it on the Google box. It's very confusing until you really break it down. So at the very beginning of the sex steroid pathway is cholesterol. So we talked about that earlier, right? Cholesterol is the basis of all hormones. There in our body, we are groomed to think that cholesterol is bad. Okay, well, a side story. When I was doing bodybuilding shows, I dieted down with extremely lean fat, or extremely lean meat. So like tilapia and chicken breast. We didn't add fat to anything. It was asparagus to help you pee out any excess liquids and just stay really dry. The place that I trained at Metroflex, they were like, all of your protein has to come from whole food sources. You couldn't even use protein shakes or anything because it might not be clean, right?
Yeah.
So dieting down, I wasn't taking in any types of animal fat animal fat sources. And so your liver can produce cholesterol on its own, but it really is just going down to what it can keep you alive with, like minimal. And I mean, it's just like, you know, blunt force trauma. Like if whatever happens, or say you're bleeding out, it's going to shunt everything down to the core. So that's kind of the same thing in the cholesterol land. So cholesterol produces our hormones. My cholesterol, total cholesterol, when I went through my Hughley physical that year was 77. And the doctor was like, "Are you okay?" Like, I have never heard of anybody's total cholesterol being so low. And I'm like, "Oh man, yeah, bodybuilding or whatever." And I go, "Hey, I got a show coming up. Like, I'm super, super clean and lean right now." During that prep time, though, my body said, we need to divert the cholesterol that we have to other things. So I did not have a period for months and months and months and months because my hormones were not functioning properly. And my body's like, we just got to maintain enough to be alive.
Yeah.
So cholesterol is important for that pathway. It's not a bad thing. There are good and bad cholesterols, and total cholesterol I think of as a jar of marbles. So there's big marbles and little marbles and blue marbles and purple marbles. And just to say, here's how many marbles you have, that's bad. That's not a real accurate thing, right?
Yeah.
So diving into like a fractionated, where you go in and actually look at each individual molecule and say, this is good, this is bad, these are oxidized, whatever.
Yeah.
That's where it needs to go with that. So to carry that over, good cholesterols create good hormones. And then as you go down the hormone pathway, testosterone can be stolen. So there's something called the cortisol steal. And when you have high levels of cortisol, so when you take cholesterol and it turns into, through a converting enzyme, that gets morphed into pregnenolone, and pregnenolone splits off, and it either goes down this track to make DHEA and then testosterone and estrogen, or it goes down this track and makes cortisol. Cortisol can go up and steal pregnenolone and say, you're mine, I'm coming here. And now there's no pregnenolone to go over to create DHEA and then testosterone.
Yeah.
So if you run high cortisol, high fight or flight, high stress life, that's probably happening. The other side of that, with guys who are on TRT or testosterone replacement therapy, they usually end up having an estrogen blocker, right?
Yeah.
So there's anastrozole is a really common one, or there's it's very common, or there's DIM. So it doesn't actually block estrogen because in the pathway, in the sex steroid pathway, you have your cholesterol, turns into pregnenolone, goes down, turns into androstenedione, and then DHEA. DHEA gets converted into testosterone. You want it to stop right there, but it doesn't. Two things want to steal testosterone: estrogen and dihydrotestosterone, which is DHT. So if you give yourself, say, an injection of testosterone, so TRT, you want it to be here, but estrogen wants it and DHT wants it. And so they're like, yay, all this extra testosterone that we can have and become more of ourselves with into estrogen, DHT. So in order to keep testosterone as testosterone, you have to have the converting enzyme blocked. And so that converting enzyme from testosterone to estrogen is called aromatase. So if you Google anastrozole and figure out what it is, like Wikipedia, it is an aromatase inhibitor. So it inhibits the conversion of testosterone to estrogen. But nobody gives you a DHT blocker. So if you are taking testosterone and your testosterone is still having issues, it may not be that it's converting over to estrogen, but it may be converting through 5-alpha reductase, which is the converting enzyme that goes to DHT. That high levels of DHT causes hair loss. And so guys, usually if they have like jacked up testosterone levels, say they're low, but they have a lot of hair loss, it's usually that they have the potential to have really good testosterone, but that it's being all converted into DHT. So
all my bald friends out there, that's what happened.
That's what happened. Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot that goes into it. Abdominal weight carries a higher conversion rate of testosterone to estrogen. So guys who have specifically abdomen fat, their body will convert testosterone to estrogen quicker than guys who carry weight somewhere else, in their chest or whatever. So, and it's the same for women as well.
Need to go lose weight. Got it.
Yeah. And so it's just something that is very interesting for a little did you know fact. Androstenedione, which is found in men's sweat, is scientifically proven to elevate a woman's mood. So
yeah, it is.
Sweating. Hey, girl.
Heard that.
So guys that need some motivation to go to the gym, just know that when you go sweat, it elevates a woman's mood to be around you.
Did you hear that, Keith? We're not nasty because we're sweaty. We're attractive.
We're attractive.
Dang, baby.
That's right. So, so that pretty much wraps it up for hormones. I feel so convicted to tell the whole story of all 5 of those topics because they all play in together.
Right.
And so if we could all just do better,
then
we would.
Well, and like you said, it's important to understand the whole picture because I mean, people are so quick to see they see one thing and they're like, "Oh, I just need to do that. I'm good,"
Right.
and then they do that and it doesn't work, and they're like, "Well, that's stupid. I'm not going to do that anymore."
Right.
Well, you didn't really look into the whole picture.
Yeah.
You just picked one little thing.
Exactly. So. Yeah, and like we were talking about earlier, like my car won't run. Well, it's full of gas. Well, there's 87 other things could be wrong with it. Well, I put gas in it. I don't know. It's not working.
Well, those people are why we have a job. So
yeah, true that. What questions do you have?
So let's start with some of the normal questions we normally ask.
Okay.
So you have a unique perspective as being a female fire in a male-dominated area of being a fireman. So what do you see? Don't point any fingers or name names, but what do you see that hang up men the most?
As far as
mental health.
Well,
and just all of it, right? Because it all does play into mental health, right? Like, it's a cascade system. So we're like, what's a really big hang up that you see?
I think alcohol and sleep is probably the biggest. I think most people understand nutrition somewhat. And there's enough out there that's pretty easily accessible. I don't think sleep hygiene is not talked about enough.
Right. Yeah.
Sleep hygiene and then adrenal health. I would say those are the top 2. Because energy drinks are so accessible. They're delicious. They give you this pump and So sleep hygiene to hit your REM, and then hydrating before you're caffeinating. I think that is huge. Therapy and EMDR, that's like a freaking life hack. And I think firemen are just scared to go do it, or, same thing, just like IFF study said, we don't want to be weak, right?
Yeah.
I think that, you're like being a girl in the fire service, I can get away with a little bit more stuff. Like yoga, it's really good for you. We should do it, but let's not call it yoga. Let's just call it stretching. So
I wish I did more yoga. Every time we do yoga, I'm like, this is awesome.
So there's an app.
It's good.
There's an app, and it used to be
Romwood.
Yeah, and now it's Pliability. And dude, we had a subscription for like a year, and we would do it every like Friday shift, and it was like our slowdown.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I taught Fire Academy at TCC, I made them do Romwad. And I was like, the Dallas Cowboys literally just posted that they are all doing yoga stuff. So y'all aren't as cool as them. So you can suck it up.
There was somebody, this was a few years ago. There was we had somebody new come through, and whoever it was in whatever class was, and they were like, "Oh yeah, Ashley Watson's doing our PT and all this stuff." They're like, "Yeah, she makes us do yoga." And I was like, "That's probably good. There's probably a reason for that."
Yeah, it's because now I'm 40 and it hurts.
They still do it too.
Good.
I don't know if you knew that, but so they still do Pliability. And I was there for driver op a few weeks ago, and I walked in to Dennis Floyd. His feet were up in the air, and he's like on a mat. And I look up, and he looks over his feet. He's like, "Hey, how's it going?" I was like, "Man, I need you to stand up to talk to me." That is a terrible angle to be looking at you at.
Yes. Oh, they're such good people, man.
Yeah.
I think you I think through this you did a pretty good job of explaining that all of these different things are factors into our mental health, because a lot of these things are things that I'm slowly learning through doing this as factors into this. Because when we started it, my mindset on mental health was like, oh, we need to go talk to people. We just need to get our feelings out so that somebody can help us talk about it, right? I had no idea. Like, I knew that your physical health affected your mental health and stuff like that, but I didn't realize how important all these little things are to do, and how you can take a lot of steps to improving your mental health through doing these little things. And so I'm starting to realize how important it is to make it clear that there's all these additional things you can do on your own to improve that stuff.
Yeah.
It reminds me like when you go to the doctor, and like you go to the doctor and your testosterone's low, and she's like, "Well, we can put you on testosterone, or you could do all these other things that would help boost your testosterone." You're like, "Nah, give me testosterone."
No, quick fix, please.
Yeah.
I put together something called the Healthology protocol because I feel like this is a lot of info, and like this, I've created this talk specifically to go to fire departments and it be fireman specific. But when it comes down to like, okay, well, like, what do I do with my hands now? It's so much. I'm in information overload.
Yeah.
So on my website, there is a section that I list the Healthology protocol, and it's free for people. And it's just to say, hey, what do I do next? And so that is thehealthologynurse.com. And then there's a bunch of different tabs that you can click through, but it's in, it just says like, hey, this is what you can do first for adrenal health. This is what you can do first for blood sugar regulation and anti-inflammation. And then this is what you can do first for sleep hygiene. Like, these are baby steps. And then when you get really good at these baby steps, move over to the next column and implement the next set. And then when you get really good at that, go to the next one. So it's not every day is perfect. And you just try to do better.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's all you really can do.
Yeah.
For me, I'm definitely going to start using you. I honestly didn't realize you did all of this, especially for first responders. So I guess the last part, I thought you were just doing IVs. And I was like, oh, man, cool.
I don't even do IVs at all anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. But now to know that, like, it's like, all right, cool. That is a really deep dive into, and Dr. K is really good. Dr. Kretschmar, Kretschmar, he's really good about testing your levels. We went and talked about my levels today, and he's solid. But I think to know more, you can do more. To know better, you can do better.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what my next steps are. I'm trying to do.
Yeah, it's wild, the information that's available out there. And I use the platform that I use for lab work is either, so like at Euless, we were able to do free lab testing for the guys on the city of Euless insurance for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I either run it through Quest, because I'm a provider for Quest,
Okay.
to order lab work. And so we can run it through and like get a price
Mm-hmm.
and say, hey, how much would it be to do all these things? What about micronutrient levels? What about blah, blah, blah? So I can either do that, or I use Rupa Health, which is really awesome in the functional medicine land. It's pretty cheap and it's really easy to do. I draw my own labs and centrifuge them at my house. So like, you know, if you have access to that, like I brought my own centrifuge off of Amazon. So there's that option, or you can take them to any lab test now with a little kit that ships, and it's cheaper, and it's HSA and FSA eligible. So you always are in October looking to find ways to dump all this money. So like we can test cortisol curves, melatonin production, the micronutrient levels, all the hormone stuff, heavy metals testing, hair mineral tissue analysis. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all it's all available. But if anybody wants to work with me specifically, my website, or they can contact me at hello@thehealthologynurse.com, or just reach out on any of the social platforms. I'm on Facebook and Instagram.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're gonna do our best to link all those. Like I said, we're still looking for a producer. We're still looking for a social
Shout
media consult. Like we are, but we're learning how to do all this. Like eventually, like I said, we'll go live and do all this. So that is one of the biggest learning curves is how to link everybody to their profile, especially like Jesse and Joe, right? Like that those guys need to be linked, and then once we get Kelly on here and everybody else, it's gonna be like, hey, here's their link, and this is, and that's essentially what the foundation's gonna do. Is just gonna be like, hey, here is a pamphlet or a network of people that we would recommend because these are people that we would use. Right, and so you're one of them, and so
I'm super pumped about that.
Yeah,
That sounds
I'm glad you
cool.
came. Right, like so, and another big thing is like I'm glad you came because like for men, it's hard to be like, oh, dude, I don't want to do this at all. Like it's really easy to be like, no, I don't want to go talk to another dude, or I don't want to go talk to a female. And so now we've had like two perspectives on it, right?
Yeah.
Like so,
Right.
I think that's helped out a lot.
Yeah,
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Well,
thank you guys.
thank you for coming on. Like Brendan said, I pretty much echo what he said. It just like everyone we've had on, it's always cool to hear somebody else's perspective because everybody's got. Even with firemen, we might do the same job, but everybody got their own little unique perspective. So,
for sure.
thank you. Unless you got anything else you want to add, we'll
no, I've added plenty.
We'll wrap it up. We'll have another one out soon.
Mm-hmm.
So
sweet.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
All right, see you on the next one.
Bye.